Hello and welcome to the Things I See podcast. This is episode 7, making awesome progress here. And today I have a guest that means a lot to me. Love the absolute hell out of this person. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. Hello, I am Yesenia Lovejoy. I go by Yessi. She can call me on this call. Um, I've been friends with Claire for a long time, so I'm pretty excited. I was actually wondering a long time, like, oh, if or when she's gonna finally ask me to be on this podcast.
Well, I'm happy I felt very inspired to do so. This wasn't just a hey, what are you doing? It was like I was thinking about a full set of people and it was like you specifically. It's in line
That's very
for sure.
thoughtful.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
appreciate it. And I'm very excited to talk about what we're going to talk about.
yes, I am very excited to talk about it too. Me and you have talked about it so much also. So I
Yeah,
feel like this is going to be a great time to sit down and share kind of the things we've learned about it or haven't learned, or just the cool the deeper understanding to it all is what we're diving into. So today we're talking about body syndromes, also referred to as somatics, and in general just the way we hold emotions in the body. Whether it's
Mm.
emotions or even traumas or something way deeper. I've held tons of crazy energies that weren't me in my body.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But the beautiful thing is tuning into that body awareness, tuning into the what's happening, why, and being able to, take that information and heal, is the end goal of it all, I guess, with that emotional
Absolutely.
freedom. Yeah, so before we jump,
It's been the goal, right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Just find a way to enjoy it. Um, so we're going to start with a meditation. This one's going to be a bit shorter than with most, but I hope it is just as beautiful nonetheless. So, for those who are driving, don't dive deep into this meditation if you're just listening in. If you have the space to sit in the passenger seat, sit down, get comfy, do the meditation. Awesome. Otherwise, you can just listen to it and let your imagination do what it does. So, we're going to start in a chair or laying down on our bed. Relax your shoulders, relax your jaw, your tongue, your brow bone, your cheeks. Let them all just kind of feel that pull of gravity, allowing them to relax, untense. And as you feel this untense feeling form in your face, we want to carry this feeling down our body, pulling that release of tension with it. And as this beautiful release of tension moves down more and more, this release of tension finds our solar plexus and embeds in that diaphragm, allowing our breaths to become heavier, less tense, and more soothed. Here in the solar plexus is our center. When we find our breath, that free of tension breath, we find our center. And when we find our center, we find ourselves. Each and every answer within us, all of the truths, the full knowing of everything comes with that release of tension, the breath that helps us find our center and helps us find ourself. We want to imagine from that center almost a wave. And this wave just carries love. Something between us and our body that lets us know that we are ready to know the answers. We are ready to understand our emotions, how our body holds them for us, and we are willing to see the truth with that love. And as we send that love to our body, bringing to light all the things that our body wants to let us know, we can bring our awareness back up from our center, up our chest, up our neck, past our chin, mouth, and nose, to the eyes, and when you're ready, eyes open and wide awake. So, if you feel like you'd want to share some of that, Yessi, I would love to open that space.
Yeah, could you repeat that one more time? It kind of cut out.
Oh, yeah. I would love to open the space for you to add any, share any of that experience.
You talk about within the meditation
Yeah,
or the topic we were talking about.
with the meditation, yeah.
Oh my goodness, it's been a long time since I've allowed myself to become centered, so it's very refreshing. Like I just stepped outside and had a very good breath of fresh air.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Awesome. Happy to hear it.
um,
Uh, yeah, so bringing in all that awareness of body, that center, just being in the body. We're here. That's the center. Uh, Holding that center. Let's start. I'd love for you to share some of your experience specifically with eczema. Is something Yessi's dealt with. I'll let her share.
I'm so sorry. Keep it that last part of the sentence. Sometimes these calls keep coming in and out.
Oh, it's okay. Specifically, I'd love for you to start sharing your experience with eczema.
Okay, that's okay. It cut out again, but I'm just gonna start.
Okay.
So, yeah, our topic today is gonna be talking about the body and the things that held in the body and how that manifests. I want to talk about specifically my experience with my eczema. I have had been diagnosed with a severe case of it through the majority of my life, especially adolescence. Um, I was told that it started showing up around age 3, and it just progressively got kind of worse and encompassed the entirety of my body, from my scalp to my feet, and all of my phalanges and appendages. Um, when I was a child, I would get so frustrated with how itchy I was. Um, it would be me having my mom to change my sheets every single night before bed because it would just be full of dead skin. It was crazy. It was honestly horrific. um, but I wanted to talk about how, even as a child, and in hindsight, I noticed how my big child emotions manifested, and kind of exasperated enough. I do not personally know the cause of the eczema. Unfortunately, with doctors, eczema or eczema is not known. The cause of it is unknown completely. People have theories that it's either stuff to do with your gut bacterium or another mystery idea. I have been put on medications for my entire life. I used to go to the dermatologist, and they would have me go be in a standing up tanning bed that had special bulbs in it that would mimic the sun, because they would think that the vitamin D helps out my skin, which I believe that to be true as well. But I would start
Awesome.
that since I was like 7 years old. Did that for a few years. I've always been, my entire life, I've been prescribed topical steroids, which is not the best thing. It does nothing to help what should I say, the cause, just the affects. which, they obviously never went away. So I was just constantly using steroid in my body, and that was an entire other thing. Um, but as a child, I had very big emotions. I had very much been acquainted with the feeling of frustration, and I did not have very good tools on how to manage that. So when I would scream and cry and not know how to articulate my feelings, I would get more itchy. In fact, when I would get more distressed, I would start scratching myself more because I just could not help it. All of the
Mm-hmm.
hot spots in between my knees, and the inner part of my elbows, um, for some reason, right underneath my armpit, um, was like the worst of the worst. And oh, and my neck was like just another part of me too. Clothes were hard to handle, but when I would cry, obviously it would make me more itchy, and then the tears streaming down because they're so salty would honestly make me even more itchy, especially on my neck.
Oh.
So that was quite, so it was quite like an experience. I was frustrated, and I could see my own mother being very frustrated in her helplessness of not knowing how to help her first and only child at that time on this incredible, disastrous feat that she was going through.
Yeah.
She's taking me to doctors and nothing really is working or helping. Um, I've been put on antihistamines for forever. I was on Claritin for a good while.
Ooh.
In all honesty, I just didn't really see much improvement. It just kind of stayed the way it was. Um,
Right.
and so that was kind of how it was until um, late adolescence when puberty hit. Now, when puberty hit, it seemed as if it had gone completely worse, as I could not even imagine how worse it could be, but it got there. I
Mm-hmm.
got to a point where it was probably like the first year into after puberty started, I had these horrible periods. At the time that menstruation would happen, I would start feeling it more in my body. The itchiness, the uncomfortableness, the feeling like I didn't want to bend any of my appendages because it hurt so much. And that would just cause more frustration and just continue the cycle of it. Um, um, I would say probably like 2 years after my um, puberty had started, my lips had started getting the worst of the eczema. That was on my face, on my eyelids, of
Mm-hmm.
course. As most people who have eczema, it usually manifests in between like spots where you sweat a lot, or for some reason, the eyelids is a very,
That's
very common thing for
interesting
people.
that it would be the eyelids a
Well,
lot.
yeah, yeah, no, it's quite interesting that when I looked up online, because I wanted to get more, wanted to have less or more solidarity, more people to
Mm-hmm.
uh, just to know that I'm not the only one suffering. So that was what I would come and across and find that most people would have
Right.
temporary eczema on their eyelids. Then it would go away for them, fortunately for them. But the lips that would happen on me, it was horrendous. And I think it had to do with the point that I had a very bad stutter. I never felt very confident in speaking, especially speaking these big ideas and these big
Right.
feelings that I had growing up. Anytime I tried to express them, it just would never come out the way that I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
I think I truly now believe in hindsight that it manifested itself that way within my neck area and my mouth area. So I want to talk about a bit more about what the mouth thing happened. It was like a ring around the lips. You know how like young kids drink Kool-Aid and they have like
Yeah.
the big Kool-Aid ring around their lips?
Yeah.
It was similar to that looking, but it was purple and it was just layers and layers of skin just peeling off and being so like pussy almost. It was disgusting. I think I begged my mom
Man.
every single day to not go to school because I felt like a monster, which did
Oh.
not help the which did not help uh, the effects of stress to add to it. I felt so completely insecure. Fuck, I gosh darn ugly duckling. um, Eventually, I finally found a different dermatologist, and they had, unfortunately, it was a steroid chapstick, but it did help. It cleared up my lips, and that was probably the worst of it at the time.
Man.
Um, After that, it did not really decline anymore. It just kind of stayed stagnant. Um, into my adulthood, I would say maybe past the age, for sure past the age of like 22, it started getting better. That could possibly have something to do with me not living in North Dakota anymore. Um, this is a tiny bit off topic, but I think it kind of speaks to the affects that was happening to me. Was that in North Dakota, if anyone who doesn't know about it there, it's in oil field country. It's just miles and miles of oil rigs. And I personally believe that the Dakotas is very, very sacred land and it's
Mm-hmm.
being raped and pillaged, unfortunately. And so the land was very angry and sick. And I think it made every single person living there very angry and sick. So when I got the opportunity to move to Boise, Idaho, um, I kind of started noticing a lot betterness in my eczema. But I think that also spoke to my the manifestation with that and how I just felt better moving here. I was feeling good, having a good start, feeling better in my interactions with other people. Every person that I've became acquainted with started becoming friends of mine, and that was a very new feeling experience to me, and that made me feel overall just wonderful. Um, at this time, I was still using the same type of lotions that I was using since I was a kid. Um, getting out of the shower, having to immediately slather on head to toe lotion. Otherwise, I would dry out too quickly. And if I got past the point, I'd have to moisturize with water again. um, so it was doing great here. And then maybe like a few years ago, maybe like 2 years ago, I started getting to another peak of, I can't say for sure if I was incredibly stressed in my life this time, but the eczema was getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this time it was more due to like a topical that I was putting on. Like as you know, people's allergies can develop if it comes in contact too long with something. So I think the lotion that I've been using for like 10 plus years was affecting my body finally, and I could not use it anymore. It was
Yeah.
making me more itchy.
Man.
So with the manifestation of the eczema and this disease that is being present in my body for this long, it seemed to be a conglomerate of quite a lot of factors, with my emotional state, and with the outward allergens that would affect me. Um, at some point, I had gotten completely fed up with this. So I was looking up online on other people's experience and how other people have gone past this. Some of the people, I've come to find out that not a lot of people have had eczema to the degree that I have experienced, unfortunately.
Hmm.
Well, no, fortunate for them. I would not wish this on
Right,
anybody, but
right.
it made me feel like a special case in a way that I'm like, wow, I feel like I'm really lost now. But it got me to the point of like changing my diet or trying to do that. I had bought a vegan book. Many, many people have given testimonies on how when they went to a veganism diet, all of their allergens had completely disappeared. Um,
Crazy.
with
That
that going
sounds incredible.
yeah, with that going to on the idea that it is part of your gut bacterium, and that is what could be causing it.
Hmm.
Um, so that was quite an interesting thing to look at. But as I
Yeah.
also got into it, I was finding out that eczema had checked off quite a lot of boxes of being a um, immune deficiency disorder
Mm-hmm.
no, I'm sorry, in autoimmune disorder,
Mm-hmm.
you know, which when your body attacks itself for whatever reason. Unfortunately, it is not classified as one in the medical field, but it checks off nearly every box, which is quite interesting that they won't. I guess it
Right.
needs to check off every box. So, um,
And
so sometimes I wondered about
that's such an important distinction to
going to
make,
guess with that. Yeah, go ahead.
especially with when we're looking at emotions in the body. A lot of them appear as autoimmune things, or like we don't know that the pain in our body is self-inflicted, you know.
Mm,
It's really interesting to view how much autoimmune disorder connects to the brain. It's kind of like how we
right.
experience pain in the brain. Like we experience on a body part, but it's communicated within the brain, right?
Yeah.
So it's always cool to get the details. Like I love where medical science intersects so well with metaphysics and healing, and like knowing what kind of
Yes.
healing you want to
Yes.
do and where, especially in hypnotherapy. It's all targeted, you know. Like there's been some incredible studies done for MS, lupus, and a few other
Mm,
really hardcore medical disorders where hypnotherapy drastically helps people with it. They feel less of the symptoms, less of their body is being attacked because their brain is just in the functionality subconsciously of not attacking it because hypnosis. It's really cool.
yeah. And so I love the idea that, in a sense, it's mind over matter, which is crazy because the mind creates matter, I
Yeah.
believe. Um, so going on that topic, I wanted to fast forward to present day and a few years beforehand. Um, being more interested in spirituality and specifically things to do with Buddhism just kind of seemed to align a lot more with my values and whatnot. But I had um, heard about this phenomenon that has never been brought to my attention before, that, the word disease is dis-ease in the
Mm-hmm.
body. And dis-ease cannot exist in the body if it does not exist in the mind. And so when I had had that new topic to ponder and to think about, it got me a little frustrated with I'm like, well, what on earth could like a child's mind become so diseased before to have
Right.
this manifest in my body? It got me kind of down that road um, of trying everything that I could in my power and in my energy ability to try and remedy it that in that way. So I got deep diving more into yoga. And I did notice that the more I did more healthy things for my body, it got my mind a bit healthier. And the eczema started to not be a major worry in my life. I started waking up
Right.
less
It's
dry.
incredible.
Would not have to go take a shower every single morning to be moisturized. I was able to just put lotion on in the morning and that be that. Um, so, it was quite interesting to know, well, wonderful. I have these tools now. It's been brought to my attention that I can use. Um, but why aren't they helping completely? And I wonder, I'm like, oh gosh, am I gonna have to be like an enlightened person to be fully healed? Which I'm gonna say I don't have to be.
Right,
I would
right.
like to think that's not the case, but
That's not the
you know,
case. I mean, to be like flawless and perfect, maybe something like that, but this is the healing we're given to do, not the healing
no,
that
exactly.
we're given this healing. We're definitely supposed to do it and figure that out. Yeah.
Exactly. And with my personal main religion and belief is the worship of my earth. And I absolutely am in love with this body that I is made up of all the other elements of everything else on this earth, a beautiful thing that I get to borrow to fully express myself in my soul that embodies it. Oh, it's so wonderful. But with that, I had a bit of a dichotomy where, gosh, I love this and I'm so blessed to my earth for giving this to me. But why did my earth give me a body that is in so much pain all the time? And I'm like, dang, it's kind of hurting my faith a little bit in that way. Um,
Right.
and so now we're talking about like y you're deep diving into hypnotherapy and you talking to me about how specific things are held in the body in specific areas. And so now I'm very curious in this new healing tool to see if it can it helped me out in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I live by the personal rule of healing of befriending everything. Everything that's within me is to befriend, not to fight, right? It's to
Mm,
coexist in some way. If it's an external thing in my body, then no. But if it's of my body, in my body, then it is something of me, even if it is no longer me, because we aren't our emotions, we are us experiencing them. But,
yes.
we're so guided and built by what we store in our body. And
Mm,
it's it's crazy to think about it at first, because at first it's just like, oh, I'm sure some of the pain I experience is emotions. But the more I do this work, the more I realize it's like all the pain. Like from doing past life wound
yeah.
healings, the amount of times I like touch someone's exact muscle and they're like, whoa, that's sore. And I'm like, yeah, you've been living with a sore muscle for possibly this whole life without ever noticing, because no one's ever just like massaged that muscle or done the work on it. And that's from past lives. And just in this life,
Mm,
and it's crazy because it's things you're experiencing in the moment and things that are repressed in your body too. So there's two separate sets of layers. And just through the work I do of like stepping in people's bodies to feel their pain, not to feel their pain, but to understand where the pain is and what it's doing, just to be a bit more specific. The
yeah.
reason I can feel the pain in their body isn't because I'm in their physical body. It's because I'm in their energy body, and energy is the twin to the physical. As we change the
Yes.
energy, we change the physical. As we change the physical, we change the energetic. And it is all paradoxical. What is in the body is, it's like exactly what you said earlier. If it's in the body, it's in the mind. That's just energetically how it is. If it's in your energy, it's in your body, and vice versa. It's in both in the same way. And some things
Absolutely.
don't want to clear energetically compared to physically, but in all aspects, if you can change the energetic, the body will follow. That's how miracles happen.
Yeah.
That's how people have done miracle healing. It's exactly that. It's because they change the energy and the body has to follow suit, because if we change the body, the energy follows suit.
Mm.
If someone,
Yeah, yeah. So in
yeah,
that way, you can't just focus on one aspect. You got to do all the aspects, mind, the body, and the energy.
yeah, absolutely. And yeah, if your body's injured, energy won't pass through there, right? But there's definitely ways to help the energy still flow through. And then in theory, if you can get the energy to flow through, is that healing it?
Mm.
I say so. It's just there's gaps between
Um,
how energy moves and physical things move. But yeah.
right. And speaking of, you feeling people's energetic body, I remember once, you had given me a ride to work, and I was having a very, very hard day with my skin. I had to go into my work and say, "Hey, I know I showed up, but I don't feel like I can be here," crying to my manager.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "No,
Yeah.
I understand it." Telling me his skin problems. He's like, "Yeah, I can give you the day off and we'll figure it out." Um, and while we were in the car, you had attempted that as well. I don't know if that was in the early stages of you um, getting more into energetic bodies and whatnot, but it was one of my first experiences with you doing that with me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know if you wanted to talk about the thing that you discovered
Yeah.
when you did that.
So this was when I was technically still like getting into it, but I had gotten into it enough to do this, because this wasn't me attempting to do any healing. I used to not
Yeah.
consider myself a healer. I just knew things. But
Mhm.
I basically opened up my index finger on my right hand for transmutation, allowing energy through. And I had I just had the intuition that this is what I needed to do to understand that. I let it into my finger. And within like 5 seconds, my finger starts getting inflamed. It's all red and it starts itching. And I kind of find my center, go into my body. You know, a lot of the meditations I do are just me exploring my own body. Truthfully, that's where so much magic can come from. But I put my awareness into the finger that I had this thing in. And that's the thing. It's a thing. The eczema, the whatever I allowed into my finger that had that reaction, it was like I could see this space that was my finger, and inside of it, bouncing in between just my cells, was like this black zigzagging thing. And you could just tell it was so irritated. It was so mad. It was so just, and it's crazy because it didn't feel like it felt irritated. It felt like that, but it also felt like something different. Like something almost completely different. But I'm not 100% sure. And after that experience, you know, and getting more into healing and hypnotherapy, we're gonna put Yessi through some tests to see kind of what this could be. Because your body knows. We just need to find the answer through our body. So, sound
and
good?
definitely after you doing that. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna speak on after you doing that. Oh gosh, did it trigger an entirely new way of thinking about it for me as well? I was like, oh my goodness, it's not something that's a part of me, and I, of course, my body knew that, and I knew that intuitively deep down, but logically, you know, you didn't want to. No one wants to think
Right.
that it's something outwardly completely affecting me.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's exactly that of how external is it? Because, you know, where did it come from? We're about to figure out. So on your Discord, I sent you a picture. I want you to get this opened up.
Yes.
So, have you done any muscle testing yet?
No, I have not.
Okay. Have I talked to you about it?
That is a lie. I have before. Or briefly, when I was younger, my great aunt, who's like this yogi, my inspiration. I would always watch her do like the muscle testing, asking her body which vitamins it needed, and I would watch her like ask it, and she would either fall forward or fall backwards, lightly on her feet, and
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
so amazed. So yeah, so that was my first introduction to muscle testing. So yeah, a little expression.
I can't say enough how important muscle testing is. I teach it to so many people because I think everyone needs to know it. Oh my god.
Yeah.
And I do it for just about everything. I actually even won a guessing game using muscle testing where a I won. My friend's an artist. His name is Nick Cox. Absolutely love what he creates, love his creative mind. He puts a lot of love into what he does. And he had people guessing his number one track for the year of 2024 on Spotify Wrapped. And using muscle testing, I was able to deduce one step at a time what the artist was, what the album was, and then what the song was. And I was so sure of it that I just put it in the comments, didn't guess again, and boom, I was right. And it just comes with that truly listening. And it's crazy because getting it to the point where your body can muscle test for intuition is a whole different level of like mind to body, I feel. But it's like how the body can say it wants sugar. Does it need sugar? No. Is it just wanting it because it's craving it? Yeah. Blood sugar drop. Would it help?
Yeah.
Technically, yeah. So it's stuff like that where our body is truthful, but it's truthful to itself. Until you
Oh
can,
yeah,
like, yeah. Oh, continue.
I'm pretty excited, and I think I'll be able to fall into this pretty easily. I like to think I'm pretty intuitive with what my body
You very
wants of
much
me
are.
and
Well,
asks of me.
you put a lot of love into your body. Like, just like what you were saying earlier. To put in the time to lather yourself head to toe with lotion, like every day, that is like an
Yeah,
act of love every day. And not only that, I know how much
absolutely.
you like tell your body you love it, how much you appreciate it. I've heard it from you plenty of times to yourself. It's great to hear.
Yeah.
And, that's why you are going to be able to do it. Every time I meet someone who can't do muscle testing, I'm still figuring out why. I think one of the reasons is they're thinking of the answer, they're not listening to their
Ah.
body. So they'll like do the muscle test while thinking about what it's telling them rather than just letting their body just say it like. But that's just
Yeah.
thoughts doing what they do. They think. So, to get this test started, we are going to do the sway forward or backwards. I like to do it sitting up because you can just find that perfect middle point of it could go
Okay.
as easily forward or backwards. So, the chart I'm taking from, I will show it on the screen. It is from the emotion code. This isn't something I've looked too deep into. I've mostly done my own somatic work and understanding of body syndromes through psychology or my own energy reading. But I used this grid the other day and it worked some pretty cool magic. So I'm excited to see if any of this pops up for Yessi. So the first question we want to ask is this experience is the feeling behind eczema in column A or column B? And you might get a no on both. That's a important thing to look at. This might right off the bat not be right, but it's good to see.
Okay.
And when you get your results, feel free to share them.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Could you repeat what the question is that I'm asking for the
Oh,
body?
you're asking if the I guess instead of asking column A or column B, we can backstep it one more step. Is this connected to something, an emotion in my body?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, perfect. And then looking at this grid, we're going to ask one question for A and B. We ask yes or no for A and yes or no for B.
Let me read these.
What was that?
I said, let me read these to figure
Oh,
out
okay.
what's in A
Oh,
and
no,
B.
don't read them. Don't read them. No, no, no.
Don't read them.
Column A or
Oh,
column B,
okay.
we ask our body. I mean, you could read
Column
through all of
B.
them, but you don't need to. I didn't have to be super specific. My body could just tell at least.
Hmm. Okay, let me. Column B.
Column B. Okay. And then there's going to be white rose and gray rose. I want you to ask a question for one of those two, or yes or no for both of those, gray or white.
Gray.
Alrighty. So that leaves us with asking this question to our body for row 1, row 3, and row 5.
Three.
All right, and then the final question, you can ask it for each and every one of the words in 3B, but I want you to read them and see if there's one that's just instantly like, ah.
Okay. I was not looking at the chart at all. So let me see
Oh,
now. So I'm
okay.
looking in column. Well, yeah, because I didn't want to. Because I could not tell what if I was supposed to read them or not. You said no, so I was like, okay, well,
Oh,
okay,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know,
It mostly
I
was
was
you
gonna
didn't
feel
need
my
to
body.
read through every single item. It was just there so you could look at the words after. Yeah, that works.
So remind me again what my answers were.
You were on row 3, column B.
Okay. So row three, I guess it says lung and colon, and the column B is confusion, defensiveness, grief, self-abuse, and stubbornness.
Do any of those stand out at all as things your body might be holding on to? Not your brain, but body.
Oh, stubbornness.
Yeah, and you can feel free to ask your body about it too.
Oh yes, that is what I'm doing. I'm kind of doing it internally. I can't do it out loud.
Right, right. I mean, no, that's okay. Yeah.
Now I'm surprised by that answer. I asked my muscles if defensiveness was one, and no, it was not. So
Oh.
I think on these ones it's just stubbornness that.
It's usually just one of them, yeah. Because this is a very specific. Eczema has a lot of these triggers, but at its core, it's this one thing that's residing there that we're looking at. Something we can release, something we have power of, because it's from us, right?
Hmm.
So within uh, within body code, there's a specific thing that you can do. I'm gonna guide you through something else after it. So you line up all 4 of your fingers on your forehead, where it's like your pinky's touching the bridge of your nose as it dips down, and then the rest of them going up as if all along that meridian line.
Okay.
And what you do is you pull them all the way back, drawing across that line to the back of your neck. And after we do it once on this next one, I want you to say, even though I have this stubbornness inside of me, I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
Even though I have this stubbornness inside of me, deeply, completely accept myself.
Awesome. And say it again, rubbing that same meridian line.
Do I go back and forth or just on my back of the neck?
Oh no, you restart. So you go back to the forehead and then trace across that line again. And after you've done that, I'll teach you something else if you're ready.
Yes, I'm ready.
Awesome. So we're going to repeat that same affirmation, and you can say it in your head if you want. Totally up to you. But we start at the center of our eyebrow. On You can do left or right side. We'll just do one-sided. So you tap
And am I
at the
touching? Am I just okay? Go ahead.
you tap specifically at the inner part of the eyebrow, or right above the inner part of the eyebrow. And while you tap, you say the affirmation. And after that, you say it again, tapping on the outside of the eyebrow. And the next part is the cheek, right under the eye. The next point is above the top lip. The next part is on the chin. And then we're going to do 2 hands on either side of the collarbone, not directly in the inner part of it, but kind of in the middle of the collarbone, on each collarbone.
Okay.
The next spot will be on the side of the ribs.
Ooh.
And that final spot will be, or the second to final spot is under the front parts of the rib. So like on the abdomen at that low dip of our ribs. And then the very final spot when you're done with that will be on our wrist.
Okay.
Alrighty. So that is called emotional freedom technique. The thing before it is just called, I don't know if they have a specific technique name for it in body code, but it's part of body code. And it's not guaranteeing instant immediate release, but typically how it's done is you feel how much you're being afflicted, and then you do one cycle. And after that one cycle, you check again, how much are you being afflicted? What does this feel like? And if it's still a high number, you just do that whole cycle again. And I have a graphic guide I made that I'll be adding in the description for anyone at home that wants to try this for themselves. It can be used for emotional release and a lot of other things. So, how do you feel
Wow.
after that tapping session?
Well, I feel immediately pretty in tune with my body, especially
Good.
tapping on it. It's kind of hard not to be, I'd say.
Right. Absolutely.
um,
Awesome.
yeah, as you said, I don't feel any kind of immediate release, but I do feel good overall.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Especially when I was doing it underneath my ribs. I actually felt some kind of
Yeah, I heard the
relief
audible
to the point.
expression of it.
Yeah. Oh goodness, that felt real good. Um, and I'm gonna be honest, as I was doing it, it was kind of feeling as if maybe stubbornness is not entirely it, but I it is something in me anyway. But
Right, right.
um, I was thinking perhaps I need to do this again on some time with myself on different um, emotions.
Right, yeah. And you can run through the chart the same way. And that's the thing. If it's a collection of emotions, then, what's that telling us? And maybe stubbornness is like a driver for its exacerbation. Because that's something I've noticed
Mm,
in my own experience with a immunodisorder is it can get exacerbated so easily, but when it's not being exacerbated, it's like I forget it exists.
yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You kind of just forget about it until something's triggering it. And it's not that it won't be there, it's just, understanding how that triggers.
Oh yeah. I mean, reading the chart and what lists are here. Because before when you were asking me to do the muscle testing, I didn't read any of it. I kind of was just going off of A, B,
Right.
gray, white, or what rows. So, but honestly, now as I'm reading it, um, I kind of felt my body jerk, the muscles jerk forward when I had read discouragement and rejection, specifically. So,
Really?
yeah, I think this chart is
Okay.
very helpful. Yes.
Oh, I love this chart because it's so many things. Oh, and yeah, it's interesting that it's still lined up on row 3 and it says lung or colon. And you brought up the
Yeah.
microbiome thing specifically. That's an
Yeah.
that's an interesting concept if, you know, not just stomach but colon health is specifically connected to it and the emotions of the colon. I mean, the colon holds so many emotions. Oh my goodness.
But no, it's so curious because I never would have thought that the feeling that I'm feeling from this skin affliction was what would be my colon or my lung. I'm feeling it's more of the colon, to be honest, but um, I, it's so interesting
Yeah, it didn't feel like a lung thing.
because now that we're talking about it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have been feeling some symptoms. I have been feeling some symptoms, especially with my colon. Some pretty bad poops, I'll tell you, lately. And I don't know why.
Well, it reminds me of how, like, there's IBS, but we don't know anything about IBS. It's just a thing, and we just tell
Oh,
people they have it. And then, like, I used to have
oh man.
IBS, but I have not had
Yeah.
an IBS level poop in years.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. Yeah, it's not often because I kept having these bowel movements, and I'm like, oh my God, am I sick? Because usually, if I come across a virus, but I'm not getting sick from it, that's a good way my
Right.
body like expels it from my body. And so
Yeah.
I was like, damn, am I just getting sick a lot recently or coming in contact? But now that I'm reading this, I don't think that's the case of recent.
Hmm. Yeah.
God,
It's
so I love it. I love deeping diving into more of how things are, how emotions create the metaphysicalness in your
yeah.
body. Because
And
then it triggers, oh my gosh, wait, I do know what this is. Oh, frick.
it's really really insane to respect, I would say. Like there's so many things where it's
Yeah.
like our conscious brain would rather feel the pain. So it's going to defend
Mm,
us from knowing that so it can keep feeling it as pain. So it'll
You
convince
know,
us that some physical pains are definitely of the body. It'll try to convince
yes.
us that it could not be energetic, because then it gets to keep feeling the pain.
But as the things I've been knowing, I'm like, oh my gosh, no, it is all energetic. Absolutely every single part.
Yeah. And
Ah, so
it
crazy.
it's hard to accept sometimes, but it is. And it's just as much physical as it is energetic. It's both as twins.
Mm,
Yeah. So I had my own crazy experience that I lightly brought up with body code. I started developing a cat allergy. Every time I'd be in my own house or a house with cats, I would get so unbelievably congested. And I still feel like the remnants of it, but it's not
mm,
as bad as it was. And I did body code. It landed me on the emotion of grief. And I was like, okay, what grief am
mm,
I feeling? Or what grief have I stored away? Because everything recently that I had grieved, I was no longer grieving. And
mm.
I realized at that moment, just doing my own, like, intuitive searching within my body, it was specifically related to two cats I had with an ex years and years ago, and how I had all of the pictures of them. And I refused to delete some of the pictures because I was like, oh, it's okay. I can keep the pictures. But that is my conscious mind not letting go for the sole purpose of not feeling it so it can instead feel it as pain.
Oh, wow.
And it's hard to let go, but it's been years. And it wasn't that hard now. And my body just got so used to not wanting it touched that even when it stopped being a big deal, my body was holding on to it. And as soon as I stopped, that was the first night in over a month, I could breathe through both nostrils. It felt great.
Oh, oh my goodness, the relief, I'm sure.
Oh my god, I can't even explain. Whew. So, I showed it on screen earlier, but I highly recommend anyone who's watching, to check out the books. It starts off with the emotion code, and then it's called the body code. And both of them are just
Mm,
really advanced searching into how you can communicate with your body and heal it from a doctor.
wow.
And I highly suggest everyone look into it. You can do it for other people, you can do it for yourself. It's wonderful work. And awesome. So I feel like the big thing to like talk about and experiment with was the eczema and the feeling of emotions behind it. You know, in
Mm,
essence, it's almost asking, can you soothe it rather than can you remove it, right? How
yes.
I brought up it's bad when it's triggered, but you forget about it otherwise. You know,
Yeah.
it, it's interesting to know it's not a curse. It's not some inherited blood curse or something. It's just
Which is which is sad because I totally thought that's exactly what it was. I was like, oh my
right.
gosh. Did my mom put
I
this on to
totally
me
thought
for
it
your
was too.
genetics?
I kind
Or
of thought it was a little bit. I actually was
yeah.
I kind of wanted it to be.
Yeah. Or my mom, I know for sure she has her own like trials that she will not completely tell me about. She's alluded to at times, and I'm like, oh frick, did that get put onto me? Just by me
Right.
being in her body for 9 months before my rest of my life. So it's
Well,
quite interesting to think if you can in what you did inherent bodily and energetically that way through your maternal parents.
right.
It's quite interesting.
And that's what I was wanting to transition to, so that's perfect. I almost consider, like, in my own childhood, I like was thrown into some deep psychosis at an early age. It felt like just this isn't fair, but my past 7 lifetimes were suicide lives. Right? There was a long
Mm,
string of events that led me to be born in this kind of really dark feeling state. And it's interesting to think about, is this, it could be both uh, past life integrated and familial And I know,
Mm.
I wish I understood this. I know so many things. I do not know the logic behind past lives and blood lineage. Because from what I understand, a lot of future lives people live is through a bloodline. And I know you can make that happen with magic, but I don't know what the conditions are for it or how consistent it is or how it appears or if like every medicine person in a lineage of people is the same person. Like I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I know in some way they're connected still, and it could easily be separate things from both, you know. I've done very limited past life with work with you, Yessi, but yeah, that would require seeing like the most recent ones, which we could possibly do sometime. I don't think I'm going to have that right now,
Hmm.
but you know, if it is emotions guiding this and you've had that since you were young, unless something really traumatic happened to you when you were really, really young.
Which I'll tell you what, I don't think so. I really don't.
I agree. I was going to say, I didn't think so either. I definitely feel on what you said about it's interesting because every time I've heard you talk about you seem to reference maternal heavily.
Mm.
It always
Oh,
feels like you're like there's a reference to maternal every time you talk about that.
well, I will say, my for the part of my life, before fourth grade, honestly, it was just me and my mom's family taking care of me. And so,
Right.
whatever frustrations that were put onto me through outsideness was, my immediately family on my paternal side. So
Right.
that would
Right.
make sense.
That definitely makes sense. And that does like, you know, is this nurture or nature? It sounds like nurture, but inherited nature also. But that's the whole thing of like
Yes,
clearing ancestral energy. That's what it is. It's that level of work. It's bullshit like
I
that.
I believe it's, I want to talk about this. Is brings up a good point, especially recently, like these past few weeks, days even. It's been brought to my mind through my body that, oh goodness, the depression that I've been struggling with, it feels very much not me. It feels very much not mine entirely because it'll come up about, in a very like it doesn't make sense why it's coming about. Nothing is happening in my life to really trigger it. It'll just kind of happen. Um, and I know very well that my grandmother struggled with very severe depression, and my mother as well. So, sometimes I fear that I've inherited that through nurture, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah.
and I'll tell you what, I'm very glad to just be aware of it because it means that I am, trying to work through it more than my four mothers have.
Right. Yeah.
um,
And it's you know, yeah, that's the thing that sucks about it a bit is you're looking back like, wow, this is my job, but it's pretty
um,
cool. It's pretty cool to break a
it sure
cycle.
damn is my job.
Yeah. I don't
The
get
job I'm
paid for
happy to take
this.
on. I am gonna get paid. I'm gonna get paid in happiness and contentment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's it's cool to actually look a bit deeper into that how we hold not just our emotions, not just our experiences, but the experiences of those before us or the versions of ourselves we have been. And it's so
Mm,
layered. I love that that is the blessing of healing. When we look into healing, we're not dealt with a smorgasbord of bullshit. We're dealt with a cake.
yeah.
And you don't know what
Yep.
layer is under each layer. And it's so
An onion.
such a built-in safety protocol to be like one thing at a time.
Yeah, like I'll break if I do it all at once.
Yeah. I'm grateful
Oh gosh,
that
I wanted
huh?
Oh, no, go, you go ahead.
I'm grateful that, with how the everything's a mirror and we're always attracting it, our body just like loads a shell into the gun of like what bullet we're taking next. It's like, all right, there's this one. And, but it does it for you. Like, you attract what you need to heal. It You don't need to
Yes.
try to do it. You just gotta listen and it'll happen. It's pretty magical. You can try. You can try really hard and keep trying, but you can also just let it happen. And it's great. That's healing.
Oh yeah. I wanted to say how you were talking about with layers, um, with whatever other type of ailments people have in their bodies, and I think about the one that I have, eczema. I'm like, I think there's no way it's just one thing causing it. I think it has to be a conglomerate of a bunch of things that need to be
Right.
healed in order to, because I just think it has to be a bunch of things that are unhealed and are essentially suffering in yourself to be able to manifest in such a big physical way, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the crazy thing, that there's so many consistencies, but that's why I love the study of it. It's like you can find
Yeah.
consistent emotions in consistent places across everyone. So
Mm.
it's like there's a shared experience, of course, through vastly different lenses and vastly different ways, but being able to like start decoding how a certain experience triggers this certain effect in these people, like, that's science. That's studying science. It's just the cure is not
Yeah.
it's not medical western style cure, but I've found many people who have found healing, including myself. And you know
Oh,
yeah,
oh yeah.
amazing healing out there.
I uh, I've always wished that y- y- the medical would, especially with the Western side of medical science, would just embrace a bit more of Eastern uh, of a way of healing because
Right.
those ways have also been proven to work as well. Especially, it just baffles me that the medical symbol universally, especially in the Americas and the Western countries, that the medical symbol is the Kundalini. It's the spine and the two
Mm-hmm.
snakes swirling up around it. And I'm
Right.
like, how do you have that still symbolism and yet demonize it?
And it's because it's the caduceus, which is the Greek thing, which is the two snakes is still a long existing symbol. And that's the thing, is
Yeah.
they don't know the history behind it, but that's absolutely what it means. And I also notice it with the spiritual community. I have
Hmm.
so many rants on lock up in this noggin about like dimensions. Like, so we have three spatial dimensions, then a fourth dimension in time, and then they'll say 5D. What's the fifth dimension? Is it spatial? Is it time? Is it consciousness? Because then we need to add a dimension for our consciousness as a whole of there's a whole thing we could be doing
Oh,
where we have
yeah.
categorizations of how things are layered and structured. And that's like kind of creating a gap between western and eastern, where there's a system, there exists some form of layer, right? The veil compared to the
Hmm.
astral, right? There's a difference, but I feel like a lot of that difference is just rejected because it's too labeled and it's not someone's personal experience, which is great. That's fine and
Mm.
dandy, but I feel like we're getting so close to bridging that gap, and it has to come from wanting some form of truth mixed with understanding the fullness of that truth, as the truth is not, it's nuanced, it's fluid, it's bendy. Masculine and feminine
Mm.
can be positive and negative, or negative positive. It's all versatile, but there are ways to like explain the structure in which that versatility moves. That's
Yeah.
the rant. And I feel we are already bridging the gap. You know, we have people like Joe
Oh
Dispenza, we
yeah.
have hypnotherapy. Yeah, it's incredible that it's not bridging how it like, okay, it's bridging how it should. I can't say that. It's not bridging in a way that's easily predictable or understandable, but it is bridging, and that's cool.
Mm. I'm very happy that, it's almost like a relationship. I'm happy that these two sides of this relationship are finally getting to a point where they could probably be married soon.
That's a good way to put it. I like that. Because, I mean, before the 1900s, hell, even before like 1940, occultism kind of was science. I mean, I yes and no. You have things like palmistry being used by doctors before technology can tell us what's wrong with someone, before we
hmm
knew all the updated ways of it. And then you
Yeah.
go before like 1800s, before 1700s, all there was the land. All there was plant medicine, how you learn to live off of it,
Yeah.
and maybe a crazy healer lady that heals ya, you know? We've been operating under healing sciences longer than actual the word science, you know. And it's cool to see
Oh
both
yeah.
of them meeting in the middle in a way that benefits the world on a structural way, but through the nuance that is that healing.
Gosh, I know we're on like this. I'm gonna talk about the same topic. I love learning more about how, without the previous human culture of the metaphysical type of ideas and practices, there would not be what we know as sciences, without alchemy first being the practice everyone that people would get into, there wouldn't be chemistry,
Right.
without
Absolutely.
astrology, which was the spaceness endeavor and study.
Yeah.
Before astronomy, there was astrology. Without astrology, there would not be what we love and know about space and science now. It's just
Hmm.
beautiful.
Right. And it's all based off just observation that they just kept observing, you know. And it has been written down. That's one thing that I think is a darn shame. A lot of people question it because they haven't looked for it, but there are so many books on all of astrology through centuries and millennia, like thousands of years. There's been books written about astrology. For thousands of years, there's been books about palmistry, and it's all these things where, like,
Mm,
these aren't new or like purely Hollywood concepts. Like, there's studies on these. There is research, and there is a lot behind them, and I love it. I love it.
yeah.
You just gotta look for it, and you'll see that it's bountiful. We've been doing this stuff as science, and it's cool because magic has its own way of doing it, but psychology just makes up a new word for the same thing. You know, it's the same
Yeah.
study eventually. It's just they make up different words for it. But there's a lot of things that are known under different terms on either that verifiably exist in science and magic. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Gosh, this one I want to point out, especially with like, therapy. Isn't therapy completely like shadow work and giving people the tools to do that
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
in what they would say a non-magical sense?
Yeah, I mean, psychology is birthed from the era of no psychology, where it was just
Mm.
plant medicine and how healers do stuff. So, absolutely that, the deconstruction of dreams in psychology, it was intuits who were just in a hyper industrial society, so they can read people well, and then they're stuck with industrialized people.
Yeah.
Yeah, but absolutely with the shadow and everything. It's crazy how it wasn't an inherent spiritual concept. Because there is always the when it started in psychology, it was before positive psychology. So it was finding the issue. The shadow is the problem. But in the past, it's just healing. We're just finding a better self.
Yeah.
There's the shadow work, but I like how it's portrayed differently just through that different study of healing versus rooting out the evil, which healing entails. It's just, how do we get there? What do we start with?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think we were able to really deep dive into some of these emotions. Of course, there's like a lot I could have said in general, but I definitely wanted to focus on how you felt your connection to eczema. It almost makes me want to do like a post on a forum and seeing if there is consistent emotions for other people experiencing intense eczema. That would be
Oh
funny,
my
huh?
gosh, yeah.
Yeah, that
That
would
would
be a
be awesome
fun.
to know.
Yeah, I think me and you should set that up. But to wrap up this episode, I have my EFT guide free. It's just a free graphic I made in the description. What would a good Instagram be for you, Yessi, if you want to shout yourself out?
Oh, no, I'm all good.
You're all good? Okay, awesome, awesome. Well, with that, thank you everyone for watching. Look forward to next week's episode. I have another guest planned. Say these things with light, love, and clarity. Thank you for watching and have a blessed day.